Hi everyone, Steven here. This is part 4 of the Mustang quarter panel truck drop off and inner and outer wheel housings. And this one here is mainly, in this episode, it's mainly just tips and tricks, stuff that I've learned. You want to stick around to the end because I did notice something. It's quite possibly a problem with the passenger side inner wheel housing. But again, stick around for that. We'll see you soon. Thanks very much. Hi everyone, thanks for sticking around. So here are some of the tips. Some are going to be pretty obvious. First thing I will say is, one, line up the outer wheel housing to your quarter panel or your quarter skin. So I'll show you an example of that right now. Okay, lining up your outer wheel housing to the fender. I'm not sure how this is going to come out. But yeah, you want to, it seems kind of obvious, but I didn't do this on the driver's side, and I probably should have. But you'll actually see, remember, these are all reproduction stuff, so it doesn't seem to be too bad over here. Kind of starts to widen out down here. So you want to kind of bend this, or basically modify the outer wheel housing, assuming that's the culprit, so it can kind of fit. You're not kind of having to mess with this when it's on the vehicle, right? So I'm going to try and pull these points together, this point here and that point together. I'm going to try and just compress it a little bit, just to get a little bit closer. And then when I get it on the vehicle, I'll kind of check it out. So that's another thing that I kind of learned. Other things, yeah, that's about it. Another tip, again, this might seem pretty obvious. Again, probably for the professionals, they do this. But if you're just a backyard DIY guy like me, you may not do it, is screw and clamp and Cleco, if you're using Clecos, everything together. So have your inner wheel housing screwed or clamped on, have your outer wheel housing screwed or clamped on, have your fender, your quarter panel or your quarter skin screwed or clamped in place, right? You want to make sure these things move around. It seems pretty obvious. When I did the driver's side, I assumed the inner wheel housing probably wasn't as critical from a placement perspective. So I kind of lined everything up, said, yeah, it looks good, and I welded it in. And then I started messing with the outer wheel housing to the quarter skin, and I found I had a challenge doing that. Well, I was able to get it on. It would have been easier for me if I just had them screwed in place. I could have moved it all together as one. Then I actually, what I did, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, so I won't have it as a separate tip. When I did the passenger side, once I had everything in place, I marked everything and screwed everything together. I took the inner and outer wheel housing out together and I welded it as one unit, right, using plug welds, and then I put it back in as one unit. Again, don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, to be honest with you. I didn't do that on the driver's side, and I don't know if it saved me time or not. But anyways, placement is very important. So you'll see an example here. I've got everything screwed and clamped and all that together. Another one that's obvious, but may not be that obvious, take tons of pictures, right? I'm fortunate because I'm doing this YouTube channel and I'm recording a lot of stuff. And there are times when I was putting this stuff together, I was going, shoot, what did it look like originally? Because you forget, right? Especially if months have passed when you started doing things. So there was times I actually referenced back to my videos to look at placement on certain panels and stuff. Going to car shows is also really good. I actually saw some stuff at one of the car shows that had some Mustangs there, and I would look and kind of look around and check things out to see if there's anything kind of different than mine. So those are good things as well. So lots of pictures, lots of videos. That'll save you a ton of time. So just take tons and tons and tons, keep it for reference type of thing, right? Yeah, so another thing, take tons of measurements, okay? Measurements are very important. Again, referring to the quarters in the inner and outer wheel wells. If you can, scribe a line kind of centered down the trunk, measure from that. Measure angles of brackets if you can do that. Because a lot of times you may not, you'll look at a bracket and say, oh, what's What's the measurement here? What's the angle of that, right? So try to measure that if you can, all before you start tearing things apart. I didn't do that. I wish I did, to be honest with you. Would have helped out quite a bit, right? So lots and lots of measurements. Look at lines, any type of panel recessed lines. Look at their placements as well. I've got some pictures I'm showing you right now. So you want to take a look at all that. So the more stuff that you measure, the more stuff you take pictures of, it'll help you if you run into an issue where you go, oh shoot, I can't remember this. That's it. So take measurements everywhere, kind of get stuff where they're supposed to be placed. I made some measurements on some of the original stuff. So this says 1.5 inches plus between here, this part, and the first little, you probably can't even see it. Let's see if we can zoom in. Oh, it's focusing on my hand. To that little indentation there, right? So, so 1.5 inch plus. Just measurements like that, right? I even did some measurements down at the bottom as well. How far out, that type of things. Taking lots of pictures is also very valuable as well. Let me just get back out here. Another example, and this is going along the lines of what I found as a problem, is keep your old parts around, okay? You don't have to keep them forever, but hang on to them. I'll show you a pile that I have, but you want to keep your parts around as a reference. Once you've finished everything, you can get rid of them, which I'm going to do. So I'll give you an example of that now. Now, one of the problems, again, that will come up in a second. One of the problems I noticed was the fitment of the inner wheel housing, right? It wasn't quite lining up. And here's an example of what I'm referring to. And here's kind of a fix what I did. Okay, so the problem that I talked about is if you look here, so I've got these things all clamped and screwed in place. There's my outer wheel housing. Here's my trunk drop off. Look at the gap here. That's pretty crazy. It's like almost an inch gap. And it's a problem, it looks like it's a problem with the inner wheel housing. So is it the inner wheel housing problem, or is it the trunk pan falls short? Now I did some measurements and the trunk pan doesn't seem to be falling short, to be honest with you. If I come over here and compare it to the driver's side, you see it's pretty much, it looks like it's almost flush over there, right? Can I zoom in? There we go. So the driver's side fits a lot better. Let's get back out. And then when you look over at the passenger side, come on. You actually see it's way out there. So what I did is so is it the trunk pan or is it the wheel housing? I'm suspecting it's the wheel housing, but what I've done is I took the outer wheel housing off. I left the inner one on. I put my skin on, the quarter skin. You can see holes for my calicos right here. And I got it on there where I'm happy with the fitment. Then I put this outer wheel housing on. Like you see, I got it clamped in place. And it's pretty much, pretty much in exactly where it's supposed to go. Maybe give or take an 1/8 inch or something like that. But again, we got massive gaps over here. And because of this, my quarter won't go on now because this thing is sitting out, I think, in the back way too far. So I think I'm going to roll the dice on this. I think I'm going to do a relief cut on this. Oh, sorry, let me get the camera better. I'm going to do a relief cut on the inner wheel housing so I can move this in a bit, and then we'll see how it is. Because right now my quarter's sticking out way too far. It won't even go on. Yeah, so we'll see you in a bit. As I mentioned, one of the tips is keep your old parts. Not forever, obviously, but I hang on to all the parts. Let me just show you my scrap pile right there. So once I'm done with all this, like in the quarters and all that, and the trunk pan, I know I'm finished, then I'm going to get rid of that, one of the metal drop-offs. But here is, if you don't know what you're looking at here, this is a portion of the inner wheel housing on the passenger side, and it's this section right here. And when I look at it, let me just put this down on the table. When I look at it, you can see there's a nice flange here on this thing. All right, there's a flange, and the reproduction had this flange, maybe not quite as deep, to be honest with you, but the part that I was looking at is right along here. The reproduction does not have a flange over. Sorry, I can do this with one hand. The reproduction does not have a flange over in this area, right? This one's butchered pretty bad. That's why I also cut it out, but you can kind of tell that there is a flange there, right? So that's why I decided I'm gonna make a flange on that reproduction. So good reason to keep the parts, because you never know if you have to refer back to it. So just another little tip for you. So what I did over here to fix this, as I mentioned before, the inner wheel housing did not have a lip right here. It just went straight down, and that was causing it to stick out a lot further. You can see it. It's a lot tighter now over here, allowing me to get the quarter skin on. So I made my own little like cut along here, along this edge here, and then I made my own flange. I guess you can call it a flange, and I welded it in, right? It needs some cleanup and stuff like that, but it's like right here. So I had cut along here and made my own flange. I brought that back in a bit, and that tightened things up a lot better over here. I guess I could have done a different method. Is I could have made this curve on the trunk pan more aggressive, I guess, or fix it there. But what I did was I made a cardboard template for this, right? And I said, okay, traced out the trunk pan. I went over to the driver's side, I flipped it over, and it's pretty much matching. So to me, it's not the trunk pan issue. To me, it's the inner wheel housing issue. That's why this part was sticking way out. Things are a lot tighter now. I still got to weld it all together and stuff, but generally that's about it. From a tip perspective, again, fitting and placement, like you're doing it 100 times, to be honest with you, especially with these aftermarket panels. I had to do a relief cut over here as well. I still got to bang that in, weld it all up, but for the most part, it's about it. I'm just going to weld it up, and that's it, I think. Well, that's it for the tips and stuff. Some of that stuff might be pretty basic, but it's stuff that I kind of learned from a welding perspective. There's lots of stuff on welding channels and stuff like that. But again, I appreciate you sticking around this long. Please hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Without subscribers, there's no content providers out there on YouTube land. Also, if you found this the slightest bit entertaining, smash that like button, okay? I'd appreciate it. Stay tuned for the next video. Car shows are starting to wrap up. This is now actually beginning of September, so car shows around my neighborhood are starting to wrap up, so I may have a few more to show, and then that'll be it before the winter time. My next set of videos will be door panels, and then after that, I'll be doing my fenders, my hood, but more importantly, I'll be ripping the engine out, so I'll be doing lots of videos on the engine and rebuild, and tons more to come. Thanks for sticking around. Have a great day. Bye now.